What is happening, ECA fam? So I am here with one of our former students, Daniel Dargan. Daniel is going to talk to you guys a little bit about mindset, productivity, habit stacking, things that you can implement into your life in terms of your health, your fitness, and hopefully prioritizing all that going forward. So Daniel, welcome. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining us. Before you were a coach, you were obviously a client before. So bring us back to that journey. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to this place where you are now.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Team ECA, what's good? Yeah, it's been a ride so far. So I started, we actually met, I think it was maybe 3 years ago now. Would it have been 2021? We met. So I started coaching January 2022. So yeah, just over 2 years coaching now, which is class. But yeah, I started my journey. It took me back to 2017. Now we're going back. Yeah. So 2017, that's how I got into training. And believe it or not, PJ, I only would have went to the gym for a pump on a Saturday night, right? And then it was
Nice.
only so I had a job in Top Shop when I left school, and as a young guy, I loved it. The girls there were fantastic. I thought I was loving it, right? But
You
then
cracked it.
absolutely. But one day, one of the girls, they put their arm up against mine. They said, "Oh my God, I'm a girl and my arms are bigger than yours." Right. And so as a young guy, obviously I laughed it off. But as an 18-year-old guy, it didn't feel great. It didn't feel great. And I suppose anybody on their fitness journey, you look back to when you started the gym, and I suppose mine probably started out of spite because I wanted to, I felt insecure. I was a young guy, and I would have went to school where there was fellas that played rugby. There were bigger fellas, and as a guy, I was very small, was very skinny, and I suppose I didn't feel as masculine as I would have liked to have been. So yeah, that's what started that. So I mean, training on a Saturday to get a pump for box on a Saturday night, that was the standard. I really had no clue what I was doing, and to be honest, it was only until my brother mentioned to me about getting a coach. Uh, yeah, that was the first time that we'd reached out to someone. So he was actually going through a bit of a tough time in a relationship at the back then, and we just didn't feel confident in his physique. Didn't want to get any photos, and again, like as a family, we thought it was awful. So we said, right, well, we're gonna get a personal trainer. We'll do it together. So I was doing it for him, of course. Like I felt insecure, but I wasn't. It wasn't bad enough to be like, right, I need to get a PT ASAP.
Yeah.
So we done it together. I'll never forget it. We called up, and any of you don't know, it's um, Ben Heron. He was my first coach. Ben Heron's now a coach that lives out in Dubai. We met him at Costa Coffee near Cityside. That was back in 2019. And that was the start of it. So we started getting coached on the gym floor. And from day dot, I was trying to suck up every bit of knowledge that I could. I was just so interested in one as a young guy, just getting massive, and I wanted to learn as much as I could. And I just found it very interesting. I always was so curious because I believe, okay, we've got one body for life, so why not learn about it and why not master the mundane? If we're gonna eat every day, if we're gonna sleep every day, we may as well have it nailed down so I can get the most out of it. And I mean, if we're gonna spend the time going to the gym, we may as well make it worth our while. So yeah, I sucked everything in. And at the time I was at flight school, so I was trained to be a pilot. So I had no interest in becoming a coach. I'd never even considered it or thought about it. And yeah, one thing led to another over maybe a year, 2 years, and mental health took a bit of a decline. Took quite a large decline actually. I got the position where I was, very anxious. I became quite depressed, and one thing led to another, and I was at absolute rock bottom. And
Can I just jump in there? Was
yeah,
this what led you to go to the PT, or was the PT before all this?
no, so this was the PT was after it. So after all of this happened, I was like, right, I'm done and out. The only thing I've got here is my training. And Ben Heron was the one thing through that. My coach at the time he was my crutch. And through all of the trauma, through all that hardship, my training was the one thing that I felt like I had control over in my life, which, it's I can look back with a smile on that was the one thing throughout
Do you
that.
know what? I think that's so impactful for the ACA crew who are listening.
Yeah.
Do you actually have a feeling of control over something, especially when you feel things are spiraling constantly and you can't seem to grasp? And the analogy I always use is, life's a little bit like a roller coaster. You can't just say, "Hey, can I jump off?" It doesn't work like that. The
Exactly.
wheel is going to keep turning and the roller coaster is going to keep on rolling. So do you actually feel like you had something, and to have someone like a coach believe in you and set those foundations. I'm sure that was probably the bright light in a dark place.
It was powerful, man. It was powerful. And he was the first person that instilled belief back into me. And he actually sat down, he cleared his schedule on a Monday, and he spent 5 hours with me in the gym, chatting to me for a couple of hours, just in the reception at Gymco. And then we went and had a session together. And we had a deep conversation. He listened, he was empathetic, he pushed me, he inspired me. And we set a date to do a photo shoot in 2020, and I dropped 15 kg. I started looking into journaling, meditating. I stopped drinking. I stopped partying, taking drugs, and I really just done a 180 in my life. And I got maybe smashed the photo shoot, got maybe 10 months down the line, and I looked back and I thought, wow, I'm now in the best shape of my life. I have control over how I feel, and I feel like I have control over where my life's going to go now. And he was what brought me to that place. And I thought, well, I mean, if he can do that for me, then I can do that for other people. So that's what really sparked the journey. And a couple of months later to that, then, well, it was actually a year after. I thought on it for a long time, done different jobs, and then it was boom. I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." So I called Lenny up. I booked onto the course. I rehired Ben Heron again because we took a bit of a break through COVID. Rehired him again to help me with the business side of things too. And yeah, we got going. So yeah, it just shows you the power of accountability, and through times in your life where you're maybe stressing out. And I suppose it's probably that's key for any of you guys that are listening. That you know the coach is of course there to get you an incredible result physically, but they're also there to help you in times where you are stressing at work, and they can definitely guide you in the right direction to put a plan in place so that you can get a bird's eye view in your life. And often we're stressing about things, we're worrying about things which are outside of our control, and that's one thing that I've learned a lot in the past couple of years. But what we do with a lot of our guys, and I'm sure you do it with yours too, is you look at how can you manage your time so that you aren't overwhelmed. You look at you managing your time so that you can get to the gym. And for me personally, that's one thing that keeps me and my guys above board, above water when things get stressful. Because
Yeah,
when life gets stressful, what would it look like if we stopped doing the healthy habits? It sounds crazy that we stop doing the things which make us feel the best when we need it most. So I am a firm believer, PJ, and I'm sure you could agree that, instill those healthy habits now when you feel good so that they're automatic when the hard times inevitably come, because life's going to get busy. It might be kids coming, it might be a really busy time at work. You might get injured, and, those healthy habits with your food, with your sleep, with your time management, that's when they're most important.
100%. I couldn't I couldn't have put that better myself. Like, it's hard to imagine you not as I remember meeting you when you came into ECA and just having this natural enthusiasm and thirst and energy. And it was infectious. And, you know,
Appreciate it.
I sort of joke, I was like, I want to hate you, because a good looking dude who's just so nice and genuine. And, like the natural tendency of people from Northern Ireland, North of Ireland, wherever you want to classify it,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
all
yeah.
want to tear people down. But like we've always been about like fucking do it, like run with it. And so it's hard to see you maybe in that down scenario. Did
Sure.
were you putting on a personality when you were feeling down out, or was your whole everything, your mood, the way you carried yourself, everything just sort of somber, and you were just like, that belief that Ben gave you then just brought out this real you, or were you just putting on a show when you were sort of down and out?
Yeah, more of the latter. I was a really confident kid growing up. I had a really fantastic childhood. My parents are, the best role models that I could have ever asked for. I love them to bits, and I had a few, not one knock after the next, and that cleaned me off my feet. But that persona of the high energy, enthusiastic Daniel, I felt like if I lost that, well, I lost other people's respect and validation. So I thought, well, I can't give that up. So even though I was going through that, I still put on that persona, which of course you can only do that for so long. And when the greater the gap between who you are and what you portray to the world, as that gap gets bigger, your confidence gets smaller and smaller. And I mean, I'm a firm believer that, we build confidence through doing what we say we're going to do. And, sooner or later, that will come down crashing. And with Ben, the confidence, how that actually grew, it really grew from saying I'm going to go to the gym and going to the gym. It said I'm not gonna go out partying this weekend and sticking to my word. And instead of going out every weekend and then catching your tail with your training, with your nutrition, I was actually getting ahead of myself, and I was changing my physique was changing, and I was able to stick to those habits much better. But it was ultimately the past 4 or 5 years I've been crafting my routine and ultimately seeing what works for Daniel, what doesn't work for me, and especially with my own clients as well. No two people are the same, which is I think it's the beautiful
Yeah,
thing about coaching, that it's not a one size fits all. What time you should get up at doesn't have to be the same as someone else. This routine could be different, could work better for somebody else. So, yeah, it definitely took time, but I really delved into the personal development side of that. And I
yeah,
suppose that's what I bring in with my own coaching as well. And that's what a big thing. That's what I loved about ESA as well, that you guys were willing to have conversations about life, about mindset, about perspective, about things other than just training and nutrition. As much as I love that, there was a different side to that. And, that's what I loved. And especially when I was in the gym, you guys were very vocal in that, and vocal
100%.
in, as you said, there are people in the North of Ireland tearing people down, and yeah, absolutely that can be the case. But I didn't feel that when I was in your gym, which was class. That probably give me the confidence as well to just say, fuck it, I'm gonna go off and be my own person with that.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's a few things which definitely helped me, that were the catalyst,
yeah.
and I would say the first one was nailing down. Well, it was actually getting clear, PJ, and who I wanted to become. I feel like we all need that. Anybody that's on a fitness journey, I'm sure you probably agree.
100%. Like, one of the reasons why I asked you that question was because, you know, Atomic Habits is always a book that we send to our clients. And the big thing in there I always talk to clients about is the identity, or the identity shift of who it is that you want to become. Like, not the summit. You were at the summit before. We had Dr. Annika McGivern, and she's a performance coach, and she had actually spoke about that. And for anyone who has read it, and hopefully you've all read it, you've all had the book, but it's assuming the identity. And that's why I wanted to ask you was when you were feeling down, were you putting that on because that was an identity? But
Yeah.
then obviously there's going to be a time where, that facade has to come away, and your coach who's taken the time to sit and listen to you, then I feel heard. I feel like there's somebody who cares about me. And I think that's the underlying importance of what a good coach does. It's not just turning up and giving sets and reps and telling you what to eat. It's, I've sat on our sofas in ECA and cried with people, like been through the shit. I've heard people passing away or bad news, or I've been there for good news. And that to me is a bit like management, as you were saying there. If I can delve into somebody, and no two people are the same, but if you can delve into somebody's life and go, how can I impact that person? And our analogy, and it's cheesy as it sounds, is we treat people like family. And if you were family, I'd go out of my way to help you in any way, shape, or form I could. Like, there's been little things we've done over the years. I don't want to, have to talk about them, but it's it's to show that I care about you more than probably what you think, and when you can instill that confidence, when somebody feels like that, then they feel like it can be that person around you. So then, you see that identity shift. And I think, I've said this, my brother was due to get married a few years ago, and it went a wee bit tits up, and I grabbed him. I know his natural default is drink, drugs, partying. And I said, get your ass in the gym. And he's like, like, I was like, I want you around people who want to see you win, who care for you, who not an environment where people are wanting to take drink and drugs and pull you down and you end up spiraling further. Be around a different environment, and that's hopefully what the gym's sort of doing. And I'm pretty sure Ben had done that with you. So
Yeah.
yeah, like
Love that. I love
the
that, bro.
identity shift to that is perfect.
It's me.
Uh,
But I always talk to my clients about the North Star and these habits. I do trainings on them with our guys. I talk about it in my stories and my reels. But at the end of the day, there's no point in implementing any of these habits if we don't actually know where that North Star is. And it's getting very clear. Like, what do you want life to look like in 12 months' time? How do you want to look? How do you want to feel? How do you want to show up in day-to-day life, not just for you, but for the people around you? And then that's our blueprint. So we just have to reverse engineer that and ask yourself, when we go about our day to day, how would that version act? I like to call them. So when I actually started out on that journey, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of self development. And the biggest thing that I took from that was creating that identity and giving him a name. And I said, right, that's Daniel 2.0. Definitely could have came up with something better, but that was a pathetic
That's the
attempt.
job.
It worked for me, right? So Daniel 2.0, and any of you guys listening, I would love you to do that along with me as well. Let's think of that identity, that person that you want to become in 12 months' time. How you want to look, how you want to feel, how you want to show up. Give them a name. And then you're going to be faced with so many decisions. That's what life is, I suppose, is it's choices. And every decision that you are faced with, just ask yourself, what would that version of you do? You know, when you wake up, when that alarm goes at 6 a.m., you know you've got to be down at the gym, but you're tired. You've had a really busy day at work the day before. You were stressed. There was loads going on at the house. You could do with another 30 minutes in bed. It would feel so good. But then ask yourself, okay, what would that version of me do? You know, they would get up, they would get their gym gear on, they would get down to the gym, and they know they would feel so much better. So it's like, how can you just get there? How can you get there? You get a bit of a sweat on, you get a bit of a pump, you feel good. You're getting into it. And, you know, if we can always operate from vision and not circumstance, I think that'll really get us to go the distance, because then we're always asking ourselves, okay, how are we going to feel after it and not right now? You know, I always talk to my
Yeah.
clients, how are you going to feel after it? If we can wire ourselves to think like that all the time, you know, we're always going to make decisions um, based on how we want to feel tomorrow, and ultimately that's going to put us in a much better place. Because you know what we do today, that's dictating who we are in 12 weeks, which is actually summer of 24. So there you go, 12 weeks time, summer 24. But yeah, that identity is key. I love that.
How did things change for you? Because obviously, when you choose to go from that young, vibrant person and change your circumstance of I'm not going out tonight, I'm gonna go to the gym tomorrow and focus on yourself. How did that affect the people who were around you? Because obviously, everybody would love to be the 2.0, the 3.0 version, but they always have this fear of judgment, this fear of what other people would think, what my family, friends would think. Like, how did you deal with that? And tell us your experience with that.
You know, there was so much pain that I had to change, and there was so much pain that I actually didn't consider the thoughts of other people, which I had done for so long. You know, I always thought, oh, well, I can't do it, I can't stop doing this because you know what are the boys gonna say? What are they gonna say? What are mom and dad gonna say? Why are you not going out? What's wrong with you? There must be something up.
Yeah.
And I just never changed because there wasn't enough pain there. And when there was enough pain, when it started to impact my life heavily and other people's lives, you know, I genuinely just, it wasn't actually just changing for me. It was now changing for other people around me, for my mum and dad, because I knew I couldn't put them through that anymore. So I suppose the lesson in that for me and for anybody listening is, okay, you know, if you maybe don't want to change for you just yet that badly, then okay, at least change for somebody else. You know, who like look at the people that you impact just by being you and just by going about your day. Like how much of an impact, a positive impact would you be your on your partner, on your kids, on your friends, if you were the best version of you. And that's how it really started. It wasn't actually just for me. It was, I can't put my family through any more of that. You know, I can't have them worrying about how is Daniel. So that's how it started. And then from there, I'll be honest, I actually had a supportive a supportive friend group through that, and I know that's not consistent with a lot of people. I understand that. Again, I would speak with a lot of my guys, and I know they get a lot of backlash. I actually had a conversation with one of our boys this morning out in America, and his friends were chastising because he didn't want to go out on the rip on Paddy's Day because he was in a dieting phase. And this is a guy that's gone through, he's gone through some pain. Used to be footballer back in the day, was fit, was athletic, and then of course as life went on, put on the weight, and again his confidence unfortunately went with that. So when someone's on a journey to change that bad, I think the most important thing is actually just trying to communicate with those people closest to you and tell them why you're doing what you're doing. So again, one thing that I would always say to any of our guys that are starting that journey, I want you to communicate with your friends, with your family, tell them what you're doing, why you're doing it, and that there will be some changes to what you're doing. And that's okay. And quite frankly, if they don't support you, then are they your friends? And I'm sure
100%.
you can maybe agree, PJ, you've maybe experienced it over the years as well, that you actually might get sabotaged by some of the people closest to you, but they're doing it subconsciously, and that might come through the format. I'm sure anybody listening to be like, oh yeah, I know you're talking. I get that. It's your family, you're getting a takeaway in, you're dieting, holidays coming up, and they're saying, "Oh, go on. It's don't be boring." Or, "Oh, go on, just have a pint. It's only one." And you feel uncomfortable. You might feel the pressure from other people. And again, they're not doing that because they don't love you, but sometimes that's just putting a mirror up and showing them what they're not doing. And that's when we
Yeah.
really need to get clear on, well, okay, why am I doing this in the first place? And what I actually get a lot of my guys to do is to write that down. I get them to write a note to their future selves, a note from them that's firing all cylinders, really motivated, driven. They can't wait to smash their goals, and they're writing that note to their future self, to that version of them that might be flustered, they might be feeling like they're going to give in to peer pressure, they might be feeling like they're at a sticking point in their journey and they don't know
Yeah.
why they're doing what they're doing anymore. So
Their maybe their emotional reactions to a situation, stress or family life or whatever.
absolutely. And by doing that, and by getting clear on why you do what you do, I have a list on my phone here of 50 reasons why I do what I do with my business, and then of course with my physique and my food and nutrition and sleep as well. And anytime I doubt myself, I just go in through and read that. And what that does, there's an overarching emotion when I read that, to the one in the moment of, I can't be arsed going to the gym today. So that's been huge for me. Note to your future self, and then also writing down a list of 10, 20, 30 reasons why you're doing what you're doing. Like, why are you actually doing it? And what does your life look like if you don't do it? So I think, like, on the with the mindset side of things, those are absolutely key. And then I would always constantly ask myself, like, are my actions aligned with where I want to go? Are the results I'm expecting aligned with the habits that I'm doing day to day? And then that's almost like that's a self audit that you're doing. And we could talk mindset to the cows come home, and of course it's not actionable, but sometimes it could just be one thing that clicks in somebody's head. And that's again, a lot of times that was for me. And no single action is going to get you the perfect body, the bulletproof mindset, but it's rather a collection of many individual boxes ticked time and time again. And you asked about the confidence with Ben and how I got from where I was to where I am now. I suppose when I look back, it's just little boxes stacked, ticked, and
Yeah.
hundreds and thousands of them. And I suppose
It's
that
almost he give you the tools you needed, but he gave you permission as well. A form of permission to like you have so much to give, like be that person. Like you can do all this, you can be the 2.0. And like the reason why I asked that, I really loved it, I talk about putting boundaries in place because your friends and family will naturally are habitual in their own aspects. So if your partner gets a takeaway every weekend and you haven't addressed that, you haven't told them why you're doing these things, like they're going to do what they naturally do. And as you say, that sabotage will come in. Whereas when you address that and you make it crystal clear. But I love that actually writing down because we obviously have an exercise I stole from Dean Graziosi, the 7 layers deep. And it gets really deep and it gets uncomfortable for some people, but actually deep down, why is it that you want to look a certain way? Why is it that you want to get into this shape? And a lot of the times it's not the physical element of it, it's a lot of what's going on home, maybe time for themselves, and this is a byproduct to
Mm.
sort of show some sort of success. So
Mhm.
yeah, I love that, and actually just writing down and the future self, the 2.0, because I actually make it my clients to do that and say, right, when you're feeling down, that's when you pull that out.
Yeah, that's the first
You
thing
know what I
that
mean?
when anyone joins our program, that's one of the first things that we would do. And again, it's just having more to it's just having more. It's adding another string to your bow. You know, it's more weapons in the artillery because I'm sure as you understand that tough time, the hardship, the friction, that's inevitably gonna come. I am yet to meet anyone that has ever gone through a fitness journey that it's been seamless and it's been plain sailing. And they're like, you know when everything is going right, your diet's nailed, your training's on the money, you're feeling stronger than ever, and boom, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at it when you're doing your best. But I suppose it's how we react to those that really shape us as an individual. And just on that, before we move on, and
Yeah.
with other people sabotaging you, for me, when I was on that journey, I always thought, no, you know what, I'm doing the right thing. You guys are having a takeaway, and I'm staying strict on my diet. And then, I was maybe a bit bitter in that regard when I was trying to change. I thought, everybody else should be doing what I'm doing. And I then realized, people just aren't on the same journey, and people have different goals and different aspirations, and people are on a different people are at a different stage of their journey, and that's okay if someone wants to go out and get on the beers. That's some okay if you're dieting and someone wants to have a takeaway. That's fine because that's their life, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to have that forever. If it's for 12 weeks, it's okay to let somebody else crack on, but having that conversation is key. But as I would always say is, if we want different, we've got to do different. And I think accepting that is almost the first step. But for where mindset's concerned, some of those frameworks, they've been really helpful for me in the past couple of years.
Yeah, 100%,
What's
100%.
what's been what would you say, like, well, for you, I'm sure you've definitely had your ups and downs with the training too. What's one thing that ensures that you stay in the green?
Um, do you know what? The last 2 years have probably been the toughest. And actually, well, I've had a few years where I had a real bad back injury for a few years. And I remember coming down, I was training my partner, Orla, she was doing a powerlifting competition. So I was training her and I was trying to do bits and pieces. And I was getting angry and frustrated because I couldn't do a lot. And I remember I went down to help her coach, and I was wanting to do a little bit, and she said something to me like, "You're not going to help me," and I snapped. And when I look back now, it was a reflection of how I was feeling about myself.
Mm.
And that was a pretty down moment. It took me a while to get over that and even get back. And the last 2 years going back playing football, um, I'd done my medial knee ligament on my right. I'd done my ankle ligaments on my right. And I've sort of related it to the story of Sisyphus, the Greek story of pushing a boulder up a hill. So if you're not familiar with it, Sisyphus cheated death. So he cheated Hades. And so Zeus condemned him to a life of pushing a boulder up a hill. And I sort of said, fitness is pretty much like that. It's hard to get going. And when you do, you have momentum. And when something takes your momentum, that boulder rolls down the hill and you have a question you ask yourself, is like, could I really be arsed doing this again? And the only reason why that came to me was because I had to ask myself that question. I was like, could I really be arsed doing this? And then I just did what you had actually said before, which is, well, what's the alternative? Do nothing, end up in a worse state, a worse place. And I just went, it's completely like irrelevant. Like I'm pushing that boulder back up that hill. I just had to have that moment. And I'll share a quick story with you. So,
I'd love
I'm 36 now. Last year I was 35. And I remember my dad had just got out of jail at 35 years of age, second stint. And he used to have this big long plank and he would put it up against the fence in the back garden, and he had the spin on dumbbells, and he'd go in and he would do like incline press and curls, and he taught me 21s,
Oh yeah.
jailhouse stuff, right? And I remember saying to him when he got out, I can't remember what age it was on. I was probably around about 10, 12, whatever. And I was like, Daddy, you're gonna do a bit of training? And he turned around to me and goes, No, son, I'm too old. That's me done with training. Right. And that story came back to me last year because I was 35, and imagine I said that now. Imagine I never trained again in my life. Imagine like all the things that I could achieve, like the stuff that we do for charity every year. I'm a big believer, and there's no point having this strength, this movement, mobility, if you don't put it to use, and essentially if you don't help other people with it as well. So, yeah, for me, there's been definitely ups and downs.
Love that story.
Yeah, probably I learned pretty quick. It was 5 years into training, and I had a moment where I went, do you know what? I'm never going to be big enough. I'm never going to be strong enough. I'm never going to be lean enough. I'm never going to be fit enough. But fuck, do I enjoy chasing it?
Yeah.
You know,
There's beauty in
and
that.
yeah, and you chase one thing and something else diminishes a little bit, and then you chase something else. And so I think that mindset is different. And I say this to every one of my clients. There's a time horizon with every one of them where I want to get them to that point where you know yourself, they start because they want to achieve a specific goal. They're in a dark place, they want to change their physiology, their body, everything about it. And then there's a moment in there, and it could be 6 months for some people, it could be a year, it could be 2 years to when they maybe have a bit of time off and they go, shit, I need that in my life because I'm not the same person, or I miss that community, I miss those people who are supporting me. Um and that's where we want to get people to, that exercise is not a chore, it's not a punishment. You can not be shredded and have a nice body and still be healthy. It's breaking down those sort of barriers. But to go back to what you were saying, ups and downs, how did I deal with them? I think the mindset is different. I don't have a choice, but I also had to have those self-reflective moments. And I
Yeah.
think self-reflection, people call it journaling, people call it meditation, whatever it is. I think it's self-reflection. It's sitting with yourself and asking some uncomfortable conversations. And there's a great book. I don't know if you've done it, Baron Katie, Loving What Is.
No.
Mate, get it on audiobook. That was the one book that completely changed my perspective on how I look at anything. Now, it may be a different book for you, but she was a failed actress, an alcoholic, kept lashing out at her kids, end up in a halfway house naked, woke up and completely changed her life. And every self-help guru was like, what did you do? Did you do CBT? Did you do all these things? And she went, no, I asked myself a couple of questions, and I just didn't like the person that I was becoming.
Wow.
And she goes around and sort of teaches these frameworks as well. And but yeah, so I
I'll
went
get on.
off on a bit of a
You'll need
tangent.
to. You'll need to get me that. I'll write this. I'll write that down. Hold on. What do you call it? What do you call the book? And this for anyone listening.
Loving What Is, from Byron Katie, Byron,
I
Katie.
love
And she has free PDF downloads of Love Thy Neighbor worksheets. Phenomenal way, because I do believe when you write things down, you put it into action and it becomes clearer in your mind.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, absolutely. If you told me that and I hadn't written down, that's in one ear and out the other.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I love that, mate. And I suppose I was curious as well because businesses, of course, things have gotten busier for you in the past couple of years, and I wanted to see again how did you manage that? How did you deal with it? And I'm sure there's a lot of your guys as well that maybe they're business owners or they're working busy jobs or maybe they have families at home, and like a lot of our guys as well, it is looking at that time management. And as you would know, like I'm a sucker for Google Calendar, and I would say in the past, since I've started my business, since I started coaching, that's been one thing. It's been imperative for me. I think as things have gotten busier, that I ensure that I stay operating at the best that I can. As things have gotten busier, we really need to ask ourselves, okay, is this the time where those healthy habits can go? And the answer is no. It's always, always no. And as I would always say, if we do it when we're busy, we'll always do it. If we wait until we're quiet, we'll fall victim. We'll become a victim of our schedule. And we never want that to happen. We want to be proactive, not reactive. And we want to go about our day, not the day just to happen to us. So one standard that I have and anyone listen that's their schedule's chaotic and they feel overwhelmed, in my opinion, we look at the house and what we need to do is just break it down to the brick. And what mitigates that overwhelm is actually just planning that through Google Calendar. And what I do every single Sunday, and all my guys and girls do as well, every single Sunday, their Google Calendar is planned out to a T for the week. And it means we're operating out of vision and not circumstance, a conviction and not emotion. And what we plan in first and foremost is the fun. That's the first thing that gets planned in is the fun. What are you doing with your friends this weekend or throughout the week? Are you going for
Family.
coffee
Yeah.
or walks? Or because again, if we don't have the fun, life goes stale. If we don't have the downtime, life goes stale. And I always see the downtime. It's like changing the tires. If you don't change the tires, you're not going to win the Grand Prix because that's all well and good going 100 mile an hour. But sooner or later we're going to burn out. So planning the fun first, and then secondly, training and your food. Okay, so if that's the food shop or the food prep, that gets planned in next. Because again, the work is always going to get done. We're always going to get the work. We're always going to get that nailed. So training, that gets locked in. And for me, it's asking myself, okay, when are my high energy hours? And would I build more of an excuse for going to the gym if I left it in the evening? And I'm sure a lot of you guys have a busy, busy day. The load's going on, stress is high.
Yeah.
At the end of your day, and you think, oh, how good would it be if I could just go straight home now? I could leave the gym till tomorrow. Nobody would know. I'll just put it off till tomorrow. It'll not make a difference. And then tomorrow goes by and we haven't got there. And then we've broken a promise. And then when we break a promise, we lose trust in our word. And then, of course, that has an impact on our confidence. So, how do we actually get around that? Of course, by just doing the thing we say we're going to do. And for me, it's looking at that eat the frog analogy. I'm sure you've heard the eat the frog
Yeah.
analogy.
Brian Tracy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I maybe have a different way of explaining it to what it actually is I've been told recently. But the way I see it is if you had to eat two frogs, if you had to eat a frog in the day, when would you eat it? Well, if you ate it later on in the day, you would put yourself through the pain of it twice, once by thinking about it, and then once by actually eating it. Whereas if you got up and you ate the frog first thing in the morning, you would only go through the pain of it once. So for me, I get my training done early doors, first pop. And a lot of my guys and girls do. And if that means getting up slightly earlier and going to bed a little earlier and taking a hit from that Netflix time, then okay, so be it. If that's what needs to get done, great. And if that works for you, then that's what needs to happen. If training in the evening is the only option, okay, let's plan that in with Google Calendar and let's make sure that that's like a meeting for ourselves. Okay. Think of the meeting you would have with an executive at work or with a boss at work. This is more important. Because if that doesn't happen, then things at work start to fall by the wayside. You're not the best version of you. Energy starts to go. You're maybe a wee bit snappy at home. And at the end of the day, who are we serving then? What good are we to anybody else if we can't serve ourselves? So that's been huge for me is, okay, how can we eat the frog? And how can we design our environment as well so that we don't need to use willpower? And I'm sure well, you've been on. I've seen you've got pretty shredded in your day, so I'm sure.
Yes, back in my day. For anybody who doesn't know, the euphemism eating a frog is doing the hardest tasks early in the day, first thing, so that you will have a massive sense of accomplishment and you can essentially get more done. But tell me this, Daniel. So the issue that I always see, and I can't remember who it was, I think it was maybe Ben Coomber that actually said it, which is the more you achieve, and you can relate this to in a day, the more you achieve, the more you think you can achieve.
Yeah.
And so, if you think, there's a guy, Andy Frisella, his sort of workbook was, you choose 5 tasks, do them. And then it's so easy to go, I've done these tasks, like, oh, I can do more. And it's holding back. So my question is it's a dual question here. So how do you deal with that? And then also, how do you deal with those people who are, and I'm sure you get them, oh, I don't want to plan every inch of my day because, like they almost are rebellious to the fact of they don't want to take that information on board. Whereas, we've worked with mentors, Craig Ballantyne, who will essentially say structure equals freedom. The more you've got done, then the less fires you have to go and put out, and so forth. So double-edged sword. How do you deal
Yeah.
with those people? And obviously, what we were saying there, in terms of, structuring that and actually having it so that it's right for the single person. If that makes sense. Because I think the issue that our clients are going to have is you can have a plan, you have a structure in your head, then you have things that go awry, but then also you've got partners and friends and family who will interrupt that time.
Yeah, for sure. So the most important thing here are the non-negotiables, right? So we've got with all of our guys that are extremely busy, they might have their training program for the week, and that might be 4 sessions, okay, and it might be 5 sessions, but their non-negotiable is 3. That's their non-negotiable. And again, not everybody needs to have that protocol in place, but our guys that are very busy, crazy things going on at home, the 50 kids, and things could come up
Yeah.
like that. Sometimes we just need to be realistic. And in my opinion, a 7 out of 10 for a year is so much better than a 10 out of 10 for 3 weeks. So let's have 3 sessions locked in. If it needs to be two, let's lock in two. And that's a non-negotiable. If we have the time, then, as in we've made the time,
Yeah.
okay, we nail that bonus session. So it means there's not that pressure to have, oh, I have to nail 5 sessions. Okay, scale it down to size. What's gonna work for you first and foremost, and what are your non-negotiables? My non-negotiables, I have standards that I have all my clients create for themselves. I have my own, and again, it might be for me personally, my standards is never have 2 per meals in a row. And that's ensured that I stay in the green with my food and my physique over the past couple of years. So it means like you can go out and have a pizza. That's fine. But the next meal, it needs to be of a high quality. You can go out and have your Greg's. I don't know why was the first thing that came to mind. But the next one is of a high quality. So that ensures that we're always just one meal away from getting back on track. And for me as well, it's never go to more than 3 days without training. So that's fine. Like we can go one, we can go two, but the third day, it needs to be locked in. And then also, of course, with the sleep, we never go 2 nights in a row with a shit sleep. So those standards, they ensure that I am in the green at all times. So I want you to ask yourself, what standards can you lock in like that? It doesn't need to be as stringent, but what standards can you lock in so that you can stay in the green in the long run? And then also, what non-negotiables can you lock in? So for a lot of our guys, that's simply the non-negotiable of, okay, we have 3 sessions minimum per week that we hit. Any more is a bonus. We have our food prepped on a Sunday, and that might be our only non-negotiable that we have locked in. See, in a really crazy, hectic week, if we turn around and we've 3 sessions bagged and we've our food nailed, that's a really successful week. That's huge. Was it perfect? No, of course not. But that's progress.
Yeah.
That's all progress. So that's huge. And when it comes to the double-edged sword, you'd asked about the schedule. I completely agree with that. Scheduling is freedom. And, if we don't design our life, we will be assigned a schedule through the path of least resistance. That's how we are as humans. We'll go on Netflix, we'll scroll on our phones, and the night will get away from us very, very quickly. And what I would do with a lot of our guys, and again, some people might disagree with it, I'd be a very empathetic coach, but I'd be hard line when I need to be.
Yeah.
For me, what we're here to do is we're here to get a result, a life-changing result. And there's this idea of have you heard of toxic compassion?
No.
Okay, so this is something I had a conversation with another coach about toxic compassion, but ultimately on the scheduling side of things, you nail your work. Your free time is your free time. Again, it's Parkinson's law. Give a man 12 hours to chop down a tree, he will take 12 hours. You know yourself, if you have a full day to clean the gaff, you will spend the full day. If you have 20 minutes until your mates arrive, you will get it done in 20 minutes. So schedule it in, then you can enjoy your free time. But that's why we put fun first. So we have things to look forward to at all times. So toxic compassion, and I would speak to other coaches about this. Toxic compassion is the prioritization of short-term emotional comfort over long-term outcomes, over truth, reality, flourishing, everything. It optimizes for appearing to do good rather than actually doing good. This is seen in much of popular culture as the desirable, fair, and empathetic thing to do. Telling people what they want to hear, giving them immediate gratification, and avoiding saying anything that could cause distress prioritizes the former over the latter. The net effect is awfully wildly negative. And that's the idea that I came across not too long ago. And it really made me think, when I started coaching, if a client was constantly going off track, and I never really pulled them on the standard. And this is maybe a client that was coming in, they wanted to get a certain result because there was pain in their life where that was causing them, and by actually not giving it to them straight, I was actually doing the client a disservice. And I would always say to my guys, if I let that go, I let you down, and I'm not prepared to let anybody down. So yeah, it's for me as a coach, it's finding that balance, between being a military general, because at the same time, I'm not. but it's also being very direct and telling someone what I would want to hear and give it to them.
Yeah,
Because at the same time, if they don't get a result,
it's
because
on you.
who do I serve? Who have I served? That person is not any better off. And ultimately, what we want to do is, and I'm sure is exactly what you guys are doing as well. You give people the tools to get into incredible shape, feel fantastic mentally, and ultimately have the tools to thrive throughout the rest of their days and know that if they put on body fat, they've the tools to be able to lose it as well. So that's something which has been key for me in the past 12 months of my coaching journey as well. So I suppose from a client perspective, if any of you guys are listening, maybe interesting to see how I'm thinking as well from the coach's perspective too. But I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, no, I get that because I call it the arm around the shoulder, the kick up the arse analogy, and I treat everyone with respect at the start until they lose it. And I don't mean that in terms of I lose respect for the person, but as you say, those standards. And again, depending on the person, I sit them down, I have a conversation, what's going on, what can we address? And I just ask them a simple question. Are you the type of person needs an arm around the shoulder to kick up the arse? 99.9% wants to kick up the ass because they're looking at external motivator. That's something that is, going to pull them from the doldrums and feel like that is what's going to work for them. And depending on the circumstance, I'll sometimes say, okay, here's what's going to happen. Like I've let you have some control at the start, and I've told you what I need you to do, and I've give you the plans. Now you're going to do what I tell you to do, and you're not going to deviate from it. And I always warn people. I said, listen, this approach works really well for the short term. This is the what I call the authoritarian coach, the drill sergeant who if you're paying for a coach who's a drill sergeant, at the start it's great. See, after about 4 weeks, you're like, I'm paying this prick to torture me. You have no respect for it. So sometimes I'll do that. And there's another sort of thing that I do with and some of my clients will have heard me say this is called the hang yourself effect. And what I will do is if I sit down with someone, I always lay out, here's your options. Here's
Yeah.
what you can do. It's your decision. In my opinion, this is what I think you should do because obviously I need to have coherence with them and so they buy into what it is that we want, and essentially what they want as well. And the option is if they choose to do what they want to do and not go with my opinion, two things are going to happen. One, it's either not going to work, which is going to give me more validation because they're going to go, I'm going to have to go and tell PJ, like, or I'm going to have to listen to what PJ says. Or two, it works and that's a win because that's all I want for you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Do you know what I
absolutely.
mean? And they've thought about this themselves, or if they come down my route again, it's been their experience. I've done it. I know I want to help you as best you can, and it's just a case of going right. Follow this. So those little things is getting people to arrive at certain conclusions rather than coaching them through it or essentially over coaching because at the end of the day as you said I think what I've taken from what we were saying is having that deep down why and the pain making it so that everything else is irrelevant. You're like I need to change. And one of the questions I was going to ask you about that, I was just thinking, biologically, do you think it's different for males versus females? So you coach a lot of males.
Yeah.
I found it at the start maybe a little bit troublesome to change and change my environment and the people who are around me. I think females are a lot tougher to do that
Yeah.
because they may be looking after people and constantly they naturally have more maternal instincts. So don't hate me for that. That's that's just the way we were brought up. Whereas I think a guy can shut it on and off and go, I'm looking after me. I'm number one. Where maybe a female potentially may go, oh, it's not about me. I've got kids. I need to look after everybody else. And we wholeheartedly believe that the best version of you is the best version that turns up for everybody, for your kids, for work, for yourself. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. I love that. And yeah, again, I would agree. We actually had a conversation with one of my friends recently about that. And we were talking about a friend that maybe didn't serve her, but she'd been friends with her for years.
yeah.
And I said, is that the only factor that's holding you there? And if that's the case, well, maybe it's time to reconsider the friendship. Again, we only go this way once. And if we don't have people on that journey with us that are going to support us, you know, maybe time to reconsider that. I only want people on my ship that are going to be rooting for me, that are going to give me a hard truth when I need it, that aren't going to bullshit me and give me sunshine and rainbows, but are also going to be, they're going to be going into war with me as well, you know. And I suppose that's what we look, that's what I look for in a coach. I still have a coach myself. Would you know Helmi Danini?
Yes, I know Helmy. Yep.
Yeah, so Hami's a legend. I was just back with him. We were in Poland there together,
Yeah.
Wim Hof expedition. And yeah, again, what I look for in Helmi, you know, I respect him a lot. I understand like his ability to get a coach, but he also walks the walk, and he also like he sets a standard which I aspire to, you know. And I think as a coach, it's important to have that level of relatability, but also a level of aspiration as well. I think that's been key throughout my journey as well. But
Yeah.
yeah. On top of that, what got me from where I was to there, it's those habits that I've put in and taken out. And you know, I actually wrote a list for you. I wrote a list of 10 habits that changed my life.
Okay.
And
Bear with me a sec. I'm gonna stick it on charge here. 2 secs.
yeah, go.
So your 10 habits
Yeah,
or 10 traits, is it?
yeah. Well, yeah. So 10 habits, which you know I've brought in, brought out, seen what worked for me and seen what doesn't. And you know, I see a lot of people that have these crazy morning routines, and you know, I definitely have got flack for that before. And you know, I've seen people. I've definitely been the guy in the past that spent like an hour and a half on a morning routine, doing journaling, doing meditating, doing all it so much. And for me, you know, too much friction to do that. So, you know, I put all these things in to see if it served me. You know, I like to be a guinea pig. Uh, I put these things in and then took them out. And for me, when I get up in the morning now, I would get up at 4:30. I don't work well in the evenings whatsoever. I also don't have much to do in the evenings. So instead of me sitting scrolling, I would just go to bed. My brother and I, my wee brother, were very close. We would get up, we would jump in the bin, in the ice bin at 4:30 in the morning, and then we would go to the gym afterwards. We have the music blasting, and we get a coffee after, and then we get straight back to it, you know. And yeah, we're back into work for 7, which is back working for 7, which is great. But again, it's what works for the individual. So some of the things that have been key for me, and on the sleep, it's yeah, same sleep and waking time. That's been of paramount to me. And again, there's a reason why that come Friday, people are feeling fresh. There's a reason why people are feeling energetic. And on a Monday, people are absolutely tanked with energy. And I'm definitely someone who was that guy. And reason being, we're going to sleep at a similar time and we're waking up for work at a similar time each day. We've got 5 days of our circadian rhythm. And what that is, it's just your sleep clock. That is in sync 5 days. And then, of course, over the weekend, it's all over the gaff. And on Monday, we're
Yep.
waking up, even if we haven't been out on the drink, we feel like we've been hit by a bus. So, one thing which I would definitely urge you to do, which I would advise a lot of my guys and girls as well, set a sleeping time and then a waking time. And make sure, please, if we're gonna be friends here, please don't hit the snooze button on me. We're team no snooze in my coaching community. So team no
That
snooze.
means as well for my guys, if you've got kids, when you put those kids down, you don't want to be lingering around, like you were saying there, because I find this a lot. People want to have their downtime away from their kids as well. But if you can get to sleep, you'll have so much more free time throughout the day.
Where you probably feel you actually enjoy the free time because you've got energy to enjoy it. And one thing which I would do in the evenings, I have an alarm for wind down time, which could be very beneficial to you, especially you've got kids, you've got loads going on at home. Set an alarm. Now, don't make it something which is gonna you know, the same alarm when you hear it in the morning. It's like, oh my God, PTSD. Make it something a wee bit more peaceful, right? So in the evenings, I have a wind down alarm. So that's 1 hour out from bed that goes off, and I know, all right, time to wind down, teeth, relax, into bed, and that's me. Otherwise, you know, sometimes the night can catch up on us, and something. Oh, look at that on TV. Oh, maybe sit and watch that, and then you turn around, you're like, holy shit, I'm 9 episodes deep in this, and you know, so it's so
Guilty of that.
locking that is key. You'll notice your energy skyrocket. Second one is caffeine. I used to wake up and ping a coffee first pop as soon as I woke up in the mornings. Now, what we want to do is, of course, allow ourselves to wake up naturally, allow our cortisol to rise. That's our stress hormone, which is actually it's good. I perceive that as good stress. I'm sure as you would agree. We need it to go about our day to day and to be awake and alive. So, what I would do is 90 minutes after waking, then have your first bout of caffeine, and that's going to prevent that afternoon crash. And we'll not dive into the science as to why, but that's been absolutely key for me. And then also on the back end of that, which I'm sure as you'd agree as well, PJ, is not smashing caffeine too late. So Matthew Walker, he's one of the leading sleep scientists in the world, and he would say treat caffeine the way you would treat alcohol. So we wouldn't, or he'd say, sorry, treat alcohol the way you would treat caffeine. So again, on the topic of alcohol, but we'll get to that. But we wouldn't smash a double espresso in the evening. So again, going for if we're having a couple of beers in the evening, even on a weeknight, I understand some people sometimes like to chill out and wind down. That's fine, but we just need to be we need to be aware that if our sleep is shafting us, that's a big reason why. So just being mindful of that. That if we're gonna have a glass of wine or two, that could be a reason why the sleep might be off. Now, again, in my opinion, you've got a busy lifestyle, you're loads of kids at home. If you're having a glass of wine in the evening, and honestly, I don't think that's harming you whatsoever. If that's going to bring your stress down, more power to you. But I think it's great to be aware of these things. I think it's important
Yeah.
so that we
A,
know.
a
What's your
couple of
thought?
things on that. I've went the complete hipster, so I haven't drunk coffee in 2 years. I
Oh
give it
wow!
up.
Oh,
Because
how about that?
yeah, I was just like I was getting up, was having it in the morning. I wasn't abusing it, but I was just like, I don't need this thing. And then I had more energy. I never had the highs, but never had the lows. And so I said I would do 12 months and I end up doing 2 years. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is sometimes you will get people are going like, oh, I cannot function without coffee. You know, as you say there, if you're saying that you can't function without something, then there's something that needs to be addressed. And obviously that can affect your sleep cycle. My only other thing would be with alcohol. We get this a lot. And you'll probably see it. I call it entitlement. You're like, oh, I deserve, a glass of wine or a bottle of wine because I had a really tough week in work. Now, sometimes depending on the circumstance, I can have a bit of a go and go, you don't deserve anything. You get what you're given. If you don't like your job, get a new job.
Yeah,
Um, but then I have worked with a lot of nurses and doctors who are like, listen, people are down on my table and like, okay, maybe you deserve a drink. But we use that alcohol, and alcohol has the effect of a sedative. So it helps sedate you, which will help you get to sleep, but it disrupts your quality of sleep. So
right.
it's almost counterintuitive.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with having a beer, and as you say, it's the abuse and then the carryover that essentially becomes the issue.
Yeah. And again, I suppose it depends on the demographic of guys that you're coaching. If it's someone wants to get in the killer shape, they want to get ripped, that's a completely different protocol that we take to that. Then for me personally, that's a no-go. That doesn't happen. Whereas it's like it really, of course, as you say, it's managing the client, managing the individual and what they want as well, and what they want to achieve, how they want to look and how they want to feel. But I always feel like being like understanding those things are key. And also as well, I would have my caffeine window finishes 10 hours. Mine's 12 hours pre-bed, which is it's quite a while. But 10 hours I would have locked in. Again, caffeine, it is a half-life of about 6 or 7 hours. Depends on how you metabolize caffeine. But that's if you're having a cup of coffee at 6 p.m. or say at 4 p.m., 10 o'clock at night, half of that's still in your system. So that's another reason why. And I know it's the least sexy subject ever, but I don't care how good your training program is, how good your nutrition is. If your sleep is not in check, I don't even need to know about the rest. I just know that you're shortchanging yourself. And we're on here. If you're on listening to this podcast, you're obviously here. You want to improve yourself. You want to move forward, which is great. So being mindful of that is so key. It's okay. How can we lock that in then? So that's probably been one of the bit. I am so anal about my clients must hate it. I'm so anal about my sleep because I understand that that's the one thing which is driving everything. And then of course another one, my clients, if they were listening, they'd think, oh my God, man, would you shut up? Wait 60 minutes before scrolling. And again, I'm sure as you understand, especially in today's modern era, it's rife, exposing ourselves to cheap dopamine early doors first pop in the morning. If we expose ourselves, if we get cheap dopamine hits first pop, we're gonna be craving that the rest of the day. And when we are craving that, as you know,
Yeah.
PJ, that dopamine, it's spiking, it's dropping. We're gonna crave it again, but we're gonna need more and more of that stimulus to get the same level, or more and more and more of those hits to get the same stimulus. And that's just going to run away with us throughout the rest of the day. And before you know it, your mood's going to be impacted, drive, discipline, everything's through the floor. So that's been huge for me. And you know yourself, you're foggy when you're scrolling. And if you wake up and we're hitting scrolling first thing, personally for me, I don't believe that's a winning standard. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. It's not a winning standard. Yeah, that's
Can I get you to speak to my partner? Because she's the reels in bed just before she goes to sleep. I'm already asleep. As soon as I
yeah.
get to bed, I'm like, right. She's
Yeah.
like,
Tia is the same. Tia, my girlfriend. So that's what I like. That's what I love it. So Tia would go to the gym once every so often, but we don't speak about the gym. She's not a gym head, and that's what I love. She doesn't actually miss. We don't talk about it. And like I'm all about like optimizing this and that. She doesn't care. Tia's a genius, by the way. She's a lawyer and she's an unbelievable job, but she doesn't care about any of that. She's like, I'll watch a few TikToks for the bed out, and that's it.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm laughing. Yeah, don't worry, mate. I speak to everyone's partner; they'll not listen to me. But yeah, and then so I'll rattle through the rest of these quickly. So do one difficult thing daily, and that's the ice bath for me or my training. And to be honest, if we always do things that are comfortable, when difficult times arise in our life, when stress goes through the roof, we might lose a loved one, we're going to be put into a difficult corner, and that's when the uncomfortable decision comes about. Do you want to go to the gym now? Do you want to go to the gym when everything's going tits up? So that's why it's so important to have those healthy habits cemented, and why it's important to just train your brain to do the things which you don't want to do in the moment, but you know is going to serve you afterwards. And if we can almost make that decision process automatic, I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to do it anyway, and not even consult with ourselves about it. When those tough times do come down the line, which they will, then those decisions are going to be automatic. And that's what's going to keep us up above board. And again, that's a big, if you looked into my whys in my phone, that's a big reason why I know I look ahead, and I'm aware, we're all aware as humans that, again, a dark day will come upon us. And, those habits that we have cemented now, the community that we have around us, that, through the gym, friends, family, that's absolutely key. So I know that goes down quite deep, but for me, it has to go deep if it has to stay long term, and that's a big reason why I would always hammer home the mindset, because ultimately, if we can frame that right and we can have that locked in, we're going to train consistently and we're going to stay in good shape and feel fantastic and ultimately live a longer life, which is what I'm sure everybody wants. And then, okay, so the other ones are those standards that I spoke about. Never go more than 3 days without training. Never go more than never have two per meals in a row. And then 10 minutes of Wim Hof breath work. So if anyone doesn't know, I'm just back. I don't know if you've seen, I was away in Wim Hof in Poland.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you know who
Somebody
Wim Hof
asked you about that. Yes, no, of course.
is?
I've done his breathing for a few years. Pat
Yeah.
DeVillies was the first time I'd done it on his workshop. Um, Loved it. And then obviously box breathing is probably a little bit shorter, more from Navy SEALs, which I would probably do more so now than the Wim Hof. But yeah.
Yeah.
But tell us about that, because for anybody to know, Wim Hof is this phenomenal guy who has managed to baffle science, who is more famous for cold water exposure. But this guy was swimming around the Antarctic in a pair of trunks, like, and has very rarely, if any, ever had an illness. And he's had blood taken from him, and people analyzing him, they just can't get their head around him. But tell us a bit about that experience.
Yeah, so Wim Hof, he's a very interesting character. And again, just to give you an idea of some of the things he's accomplished, he's ran through the Gobi Desert, which again, it's a very unforgiving desert with no water. He climbed Mount Everest in his shorts with no shoes. He has the record for the longest time in a tank of ice in an ice bath, which is, I think it's around 3 hours. And yeah, like he's balanced himself upside down up one finger, 1 mile up in the air on a hot air balloon. Just done some incredible things. And, he's gone through studies. He's been studied, been the guinea pig where they've actually injected Wim with an endotoxin. And he has being able to regulate his body, regulate his fight or flight, and stay in that rest and digest mode through his breath whilst being injected with this endotoxin, where people would usually take quite a nasty reaction. They would take fits, they would break out in a sweat, their body
Like,
temperature would be through the roof,
yeah, like
and
a virus would be in the body reacting to it.
yeah, and nothing happened. And he actually ended up and taught these 12 subjects as well, because he said, you're a freak of nature, you can't replicate it. He went and taught these 12 subjects. They came in, done it, and it was the exact same. So this guy's completely defying science. And yeah, I got into him as well a couple of years ago. His breath work, and it was more so for the cold water. I seen this crazy guy jumping in the ice screaming, breathe, motherfucker, and I thought, this guy's nuts. But I loved it. I loved the energy and the enthusiasm. And yeah, I started like a big part of my self-development journey, going from a really dark place to where I am today, has actually been getting in the ice. And I know a lot of people think it's wishy-washy, and people don't. I know a lot of people give it hate online, and I give it a lot of shit. But for me, like, it's nothing to do with getting in shape. It's nothing to do with my health. It's nothing to do with recovery. It's actually just because I find it challenging, and I feel such a sense of accomplishment after it. And it really sets me up to do more difficult things that day. And that's one thing which I tie to my identity. And so the Wim Hof expedition, 7 days out in Poland in the mountains. And I seen that as the World Cup final of sea dips, of bin dips, the Catalina wine mixer. So I thought, I have to book on. So yeah, it was 7 days out in the mountains. We were in the waterfalls, doing ice baths until failure. It was a lot of breath work. We climbed the mountain in our shorts. It was like 4 hours out in freezing conditions in our shorts. And yeah, and like using the power of your breath. Of course, yeah, we smashed it, and it was fantastic. You met people from all over the world, but yeah, it was doing those difficult things. Have really it's been a pillar of my journey, and that's what we get a lot of our guys doing as well, is leaning into discomfort so that it becomes second nature to go to the gym when they don't want to. And that's been key, because if we can continue going, then our life's only going to benefit. Like, the gym's never going to cure all your problems, but it's never going to make anything worse.
Yeah. It always stuff like that reminds me of the quote that Lenny always does, which is, do hard things, have an easy life, do easy things, have a hard life.
Yeah.
And that's what the gym can help to do. It's that resilience that you build within yourself. If you're sitting there and you do a heavy squat, a heavy deadlift, and you didn't want to do it, you feel better about yourself. And then it gets to a point where you have to challenge yourself. I openly tell our clients, I have what I would consider 3 client stages for people.
Hmm.
Stage one client for me is somebody who has little or no experience in the gym, nutrition, no clue. They're a completely different standard and what I set for them compared to somebody who has had experience in the gym, maybe followed a meal plan, whatever it is. And then the stage 3 people are what I call the lifestyle douchebags, the ones who love, eat, breathe fitness. It's not a chore, it's part of their life. They know they can put their foot in the gas when they want to. They've got those habits nailed
Yeah.
down. But those people need challenged. And
Mm.
that's the difference. If they don't have a challenge, then sometimes things can come mundane. So having that for you is great, because you've been through the fads, the trends of training, getting in shape, doing these certain things. And then it's like, what next?
Yeah.
Like, I run a marathon running, I think I ran 8 times. I hate running. I,
Right. Love it.
I had it in my mindset that I'd done David Goggins' book. I stuck on Mike Tyson's audio or autobiography when I did it. And someone was like, "You're not listening to music." And I was like, "No, I sort of already had it in my head. I'm here for a long time. I'm here for a journey. I don't care what's happening. This is getting done." Like, so I that was my first real foray into the mental capacity. It could just sort of pull me over the line.
How did you find that experience? What was that experience for you like?
Great. Like, the only reason why I done it was we done a charity boxing event. I ended up with tennis elbow in so I couldn't lift weights, and I just went, "Hey, I'm going to run the marathon." Right? I wasn't doing it for charity. I wasn't doing anything. Just went, "I'm going to take this off the list." Um, Done a bit of a medial knee injury on skiing after the first week. Went skiing, hurt my knee, was dragging it around Bulgaria. And then just sort of, I just knew I was just going to achieve this. I remember people going to me, "You're going to hit a wall." And I never hit a wall, but I was going to myself, why? I was questioning myself, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not doing it for a charity. I'm not doing it to bum and blow about it. I was just sort of doing it to go right. And then last year we raised money. We did the Mourne 7-7s. I'm already looking at doing um, the four Hass Mountains in Ireland in
No
44
way.
hours. Yeah, so there's more
In how
travel.
many hours?
What?
In how many hours?
It's in 44 hours because that includes the travel. So you're going up a mountain, coming down, traveling next mountain. And I'm just trying to think of ways that I can challenge well. So Wim Hof may be one. I'll tell you one thing. I do cold plunges. I have a barrel that I buy, and I've never slept as well. And for anybody out there, like it is a phenomenal tool. If you're just starting off, because I get a lot of questions about this, cold showers, what temperature should it be? There's great research that said you can get the health benefits from 10 to 12 degrees, which is pretty much like going to the ocean,
It
you
is, yeah.
know. And I remember thinking about this. There's a Navy SEAL talking about this, that the waterboarding that they do is the hardest aspect. It's one that mentally gets most Navy SEALs to check out. And the guy was like, "Do you know a mile down the beach, there's kids playing in that water all day, every day?" And it's how they view it. And I remember I was doing a cold water exposure video, and I went, "That's the same water that you went to the beach at and get in. And you say to your mom and dad, like, 'Oh, it's cold now. You'll soon warm up.'" It was just that analogy, and then how we sort of perceive it. But
That's
yeah,
great.
I think that's why you're enjoying those things, because you're getting that hard thing, you're getting that challenge. And if you're out there, you're just starting off in your fitness journey, the challenge might be getting to the gym. And
Mm,
when you overcome that and you feel that sense of achievement, then you'll want to chase that achievement more.
mm,
Everyone wants to feel that they're progressing, that they feel like things are going in the right direction, that Martin Rooney was great at this in his book, Coach to Coach. In his little parable story, he says, never miss an opportunity to tell someone how proud you are of them.
I love that.
Yeah. So like even little things, if somebody just went and did an extra rep, I'm like, listen, I'm proud of you. Or a hand around the back, because I know when someone says that to me, and I had a moment like that with a business mentor. We had set a challenge, myself and Lenny were working with a group, and it was a fitness challenge, and I wanted to lose, I think it was 7 kgs to go to Vegas. And he was walking around, "What was your fitness goal?" And there was this guy beside me, and he says, "What was your fitness goal?" He was like, "Lose 3% body fat." And he just looked him up and down, just went, didn't do it then. Didn't even give the guy a chance to think. Just literally like cut him. He says, "What was your goal?" And I says, "It was this." "Did you do it?" "Yep." And I remember him just going, "Well done." But I just felt, because that was a peer of mine, this overwhelming achievement, going, I fucking feel great. Do you know what I mean? Like I did what I said I was going to do, and someone has recognized it, and I feel sort of proud of that. But
I'm
yeah,
gonna,
going back to that, I think
yeah, I'm gonna
you
take that from today, from
know,
what you said there. I think I think if everybody could take that, if you could you repeat that? What Martin Rooney says.
never miss an opportunity to tell people how proud you are of them. And that's, if you do his Coach to Coach book, it's a story. It's a story of a young coach and an old coach who mentors the young coach. And it's not a self-help book, it's just the parables that and the fables that come from that story, so impactful. And then the high 10 about the culture, he's a genius at what he does. And like I say, we were talking about him today, and his energy he is on.
It's next level, like next
I'm
level.
sure his partner hates him.
Oh yeah, yeah. Unless she's feeding him cocaine, who knows?
Yep,
But one
yep,
of the things you said was, again, we're setting these challenges, these feats, which we want to see what we're capable of doing. And for some people, that might be getting to the gym. And when I was starting out in my coaching journey as well, is I quickly realized that the idea of getting to the gym for people was actually a lot worse than when they got there. Things are a lot worse in their imagination. So how can we trick our brain into showing up? And I started with that analogy in the bin, where I told myself every morning, just go in and do 5 seconds. And when I go and do 5 seconds, once you've done that, you can get out. So
yep.
now a huge mountain became a molehill. And that was so much easier to get over. So how can we translate that to the gym? Just go and do 2 sets. Like, just drive to the gym and go and do 2 sets. And see, if you want to go home after 2 sets, you can. Full permission. When you get there, you get into the gym, you do 2 sets, you get a pump on, you get a sweat on, you will not go home because you will realize you've slayed the greatest dragon, and that was getting to the gym. So, how can we trick our brain into doing the thing? And if that's what it takes to get us there, to start building that habit, then that's what we'll do. That's what we're gonna do. And soon enough, you won't need to trick your brain to getting there. You won't need to break it down because that'll just be like a molehill in just going itself. So that's one thing for a lot of our guys. When I was starting out coaching, that again was maybe beginners. We wouldn't really work with as many beginners now, but it doesn't matter because it's all applicable to anything in life. And to anybody listening that's thinking, oh, we've got to go to the gym, 2 sets. You want to go home? You can. Break it down, and then we go from there. If you can't slay the dragon in front of you, scale it down to size to one that you can, that you know you can. And that's been key for me. I'm doing the yeah, did you ever I'm doing David Goggins challenge at the end of the month. So that's the next thing. Did you ever do it?
Which one is it?
So it's you run 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours.
Yes. Yes. No, I haven't done it, but yeah, I've seen people do it for charity and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that'll be. I haven't ran since last June, so that'll be interesting. So we're gonna again. I just want to see what we're capable of doing. So yeah, I'll keep you updated. That next time you'll see me, I'll be in a wheelchair. So
But when are you planning on doing it?
I go to America on the first, so I'm gonna do it the weekend before. So it's like 2 weeks time. So yeah, in the bag, brother.
Move
Uh,
on.
but yeah, that mental frame was key for me in the start when I had to break it, when I had to really scale it down to size. But yeah, those have been that honestly instrumental is again figuring out who you want to become, where's your North Star, asking what would that version of you do, then again designing your environment so that you don't need to use willpower, planning your life so that you have a bird's eye view on the week so that it mitigates overwhelm, looking at your high energy hours and eating the frog first pop if that suits you. And then instead of focusing on the output, looking at the input. So if your output for toxic is a 6 pack, don't focus on the output. Focus on what are the inputs that you need to do day to day to get that. Is okay, that's nailing my steps today. That's making sure I have the foot bot and the foot here. That's making sure I hit the gym 4 times a week. And if you nail those, the result will just take care of itself. You don't need to worry about that then. So that's been huge. Attaching everything to the input and not the output. And also just trying to enjoy going and trying to reframe it. I'm sure as you've definitely had those before, PJ, where you're thinking, oh fuck, I've got to go here, but actually reframe it and think, I actually get to go here. Like it's actually I get to go and train and feel fantastic afterwards. Some people don't have that opportunity. There's a young girl that trains at a gym near me, and she's heavily disabled and not able to stand. She's in a wheelchair, and being able to see someone like that in training, that's it makes me so grateful. Obviously, firstly, extremely inspirational that she's in there training and pushing herself. Like, I was insane to see, lovely girl, but it's made me so grateful that I have the opportunity to go in and be able to train what I want when I want. And when we frame it like that, we're like, fuck yeah, I'm going to the gym, instead of, oh man, here another one. So framing it like that, I think, so key.
Yeah, we have a client who's in a wheelchair, and I have a client that I coach as well, has cerebral palsy. It affects his legs massively,
Yeah.
but like just their attitude. And I actually nearly had a tearful moment at the weekend. We were playing football, and my previous coach last year, um, had give it up, and then as a new season started, he had caught a viral infection which attacked his brain. He was in ICU for a long time, and a friend had brought him up to our game at the weekend. He's in a wheelchair. He's half blind. Like he looked a shell of the person, and he's only in his early 40s, early to mid 40s. And it was just, I've always had this thing that like the reason why I got into becoming a coach was watching my grandmother deteriorate. Nurses out 5 times a day, and my mum constantly looking after. And I remember watching a DIY SOS show, knowing Nick Knowles, and this guy had a huge, massive stroke, was bedridden. His wife looked after him, two young girls who were going to college. And when you watch stuff like that, you're like, oh, that's an amazing story. I just got angry. I was just like, at one point, does your health become your priority and your responsibility? But then you have anomalies like that. That guy was actually playing football with me last year, and out of the blue, you know. So it's really it's morbid to think, but that sort of stuff inspires me to go like, yeah, like I want to be able to, you know, my joke, wipe my own ass when I'm 70, like look after my health. Years ago the generational thing was my kids will look after me.
Mm.
Half of those kids are in America, Australia, all over the world. You know, you don't want to be a burden to anybody, so your fitness is your responsibility.
I don't want to. I don't want to get to the stage where, I look at my granny. She fell not too long ago and broke her wrist. And again, it was such an easy fall, but through, again, as you know, you train your resistance training. It's the one thing that's going to counteract the onset of osteoporosis. And I don't want to fall when I'm older, and I don't want to go from one fall. That's not, I don't want to have to worry about that. And again, it's that burden we put on other people as well. And yeah, as you said, like, what does it have to take for us to start prioritizing our health? Why should it have to take a stroke to look after yourself? Why should it have to be diagnosed with type 2 to start looking after yourself? And as I said before, brother, if we don't want to do it for us, what about doing it for other people? Let's look at other people. Because some people, and myself included, back in the day, it's okay to let ourselves down, but it's not okay to let other people down. And I believe when you have that responsibility to somebody else, and I suppose that accountability from a coach as well, then you're going to push yourself to do those things. So and again, the community which you guys have, which that's one thing which it always stood out to me, that when everyone was in having the crack, and he's had the community days, and that's powerful. That's more than the training. That's everything, because that's impacting people's lives on another level. So if you can garner that, which you have, yeah, that's powerful.
Mate, that retreat we done at the end of January, um, within the first 10 minutes I was crying, right? The story that I told, what I was saying there about Hagen in the industry, and then you could sort of see throughout the next 48 hours, people starting to, you know, break down the barriers. And then next minute, somebody else opened up. And then, later on at the end, another person. And then somebody who you think is a tough nut and hard nut to crack. Then, they tell their story. And, there was tears everywhere. And this didn't happen in a single circumstance. It happened because I'm comfortable with myself. I'm vulnerable. I'm happy to be vulnerable in front of people. And then other people felt comfortable. And so that environment, people who you're around who are not there to judge you, who want to see you win, who essentially are there because they want to help, more than you probably care to think. Like that's the power of the community. And that's the power of community events. And when you're around like-minded people, I truly believe you think you can take on the world because you've got everyone behind you as opposed to and who's on my team, who cares for me, who doesn't. So yeah, that's something we try and prioritize as much as possible. And listen, loads of people try and do it themselves, like different groups, and I just think the more people we can help, the better.
Yeah, and I suppose it's more fun when you don't do it alone. I gone through that self. I think a lot of people connotate loneliness with self-development, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. I understand that there's times you might have you maybe you don't have as much in common with that previous friend group, and you're maybe not apt or competent enough in that realm to be friends with a new group.
Yeah.
And that's okay, that's okay. But it's understanding that it's better to be a lone wolf in the short term. If you know what's going to serve you down the line, then being part of something which isn't serving you, it's only going to hold you back from who you can become. So that was definitely a difficult part of the journey, and I'm sure some people could definitely empathize with that. Maybe people that are just getting into the gym, that maybe their friends or their family aren't really supportive of it, and just knowing that you know you're serving yourself, and what's the alternative again? You go back and you have people around you that aren't for you and don't support you, and you're gonna have a worse quality of life down the line. Nah, life's too short for that, man. Life's too short for it. So yeah, it's class to see. And that's one of the biggest things which I tried to take from ECA into my coaching as well. Again, a lot of our guys would be American or Australian, and trying to garner that online it's so important for me. Still trying to have that culture and that community and drive that forward, and no matter if some of those guys are never going to meet each other, being able to create that safe space, that's key. So yeah, you guys have got it good. If you're listening to ECA, you got it good, because not everywhere is like that. And I'm serious when I say that. Not everywhere is like that.
So let's roll that all into what we spoke about today. What, from you coaching people, from your experience, boil it down to what you think people potentially need to do to, you know, improve their physique, improve their mindset, stuff like that. What would be your, like, if you were to sum it all up?
I would say the first thing that you should do is write it down in your notes or in pen to paper who you want to become in 12 months' time. And I would write down why you want to do what you do. If I had to go back, so this is me thinking, if I had to go back to the start, that's definitely what I would do. I would write down who I want to become, why I want to become that person, and get very clear and get deep on that as well. Again, anyone that's listening, again, I'm sure most of the listeners, if this is in the portal, of course, are already at ECA at the gym. I would ensure that you have your week planned out on a Sunday using Google Calendar. I would make sure that you have your fun, your downtime planned in first, so that life doesn't go stale. I would then plan in your training, your food prep, and then your work, free time, everything. Lock that in and see if you're resistant to it. That's fine. I get that. But give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? There's people that want to see the benefits before trying it, and there's people that want to try it to see the benefits. Like be the latter. Give that a whirl. And then I would definitely look at implementing those sleep and caffeine tips as well, making sure that your sleeping schedule is locked in. Have that 1 hour out snooze alarm. It definitely helps me a lot. Making sure that in the evening, in the morning, it's the same set waking and sleep time. Your energy is it's going to be night and day for you. Then making sure that the caffeine, give that 90 minutes after waiting, 10 hours pre-bed, cut that off. That's going to be huge for your energy, for regulating hunger hormones. And if you're anything like me, it's gonna regulate those jitters as well. I get me 1 cup of coffee and I get the jits. Like, so yeah, we're not banging much caffeine here.
You need some L-theanine.
I take L-theanine. Yeah, it's the best. It completely gets rid of me and you're the same wavelength. I would have one flat white a day with a wee L-theanine, and it's beautiful, man. That sorts the jits. And then from there, so I would also write down 2 things: a not to do list and a non negotiable list. So, your non negotiable list is what's going to get done on your busiest of weeks. Is that 2 gym sessions? What can you seriously commit to? Because there's no point in committing to things that we can't do. And I'm all for saying, we can make time, we can get XYZ done. But sometimes, people do live a different lifestyle, and people do have sometimes a lot more going on. And again, I live at home here. I run my own schedule, I do everything myself. It's very easy for me to say that. And I'm aware of that too. I don't have kids. My girlfriend lives in a different country, so I don't have as many commitments as other people would say. So again, I understand that. I'm saying that with ignorance. But again, also working with a lot of people that are under a lot of time constraints, it's making sure that you have that week planned out well ahead of time then. But that's been key, and locking in those non-negotiables. Can you get 2 sessions done? Can you have your food prepped on a Sunday? If that's our busiest week, then that's great. That's a win. And then a not to do list. That's key for me. So what I've done, PJ, and I have all my clients do it as well. I get them to write out a list of deposits and a list of withdrawals. So the deposits are things which make them feel class and ensure that they still move forward. That might be that's probably for most people training, eating good food, sleeping 7 to 9 hours, not scrolling when you wake, all of those things. And then your withdrawals are things that might take away your energy. Scrolling first, pop, alcohol, drink, drug, all those things. And it's very simple. When we're in the amber, we look at those deposits, and that's our blueprint to get exactly to get from amber or red back to the green. We just implement that contingency plan of those deposits. And for me, that might be okay, right? Social media, I'm only on it, maybe on it once, 1 hour a day for work, and that's it. No caffeine, alcohol, putting a break on that. And all I just look at those deposits and withdrawals. So get very clear on what works well for you and what doesn't. And very simple. It sounds so simple to say, but do more of what makes you feel great and just less of what makes you feel worse after it in the long run. And I'm not talking about what makes you feel great in the moment. I know smashing donuts and sitting scrolling on your phone might feel good at the time, but I'm talking about afterwards. Let's look at the after effect of these things. So a not to do list is key, because people always focus on the accelerator. When people think about changing their lives, they only think about the accelerator. What am I going to start doing? I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to start journaling. I'm going to start doing the ice baths. Start. But what about the things that we're going to stop doing? Instead of always focusing on the accelerator, what if we avoided the speed bumps, and we'd actually realize we go a lot faster, a lot quicker if we just avoided those speed bumps? Instead of thinking, how can I implement all of this? So sometimes not adding in more, it's sometimes just doing less. And that might be, I'm not going to drink on a Friday, on Saturday, every single weekend, locking in a standard. It might be, okay, I'm going to maybe going to have a drink once every 2 weeks or once a month. It depends on the individual and where you're at and what your goals are. But it's knowing what works for you and what your standard is, and then asking, is this aligned with where I want to go? So that's key. Getting clear who you want to become, planning your week, always asking yourself, what would that version of me do? Getting a not to do list, and then locking in your non-negotiables. And then of course you've got your little habits from the sleep and the caffeine as well. Again, it's nothing crazy and it sounds very overwhelming, but if we can take one thing from this podcast today and implement it, then that's great. I see that as a win. I don't expect, I've never listened to a podcast and taken in and implemented every single thing, but that's not the point in it. It's the point if there's one thing that we listen to and we think, okay, I'll give that a go, and it improves our quality of life, then that was a net positive and actually listen to that in the first place. And if you've a boring enough life where you can listen to me talk for an hour, then you know I take my hat off to you in the first place.
You know what? Like that's something I always tell you guys, as students. You know, I had a light bulb moment with nutrition. As you said, like when I do the advanced nutrition course now, I always tell people, hey, listen, there's going to be one or two things you're going to pick up from this weekend, and that's going to stick in your head, and the other stuff isn't, because you're at a level to accept what that is. But if you were to come back here every week and we were to do this, you would pick something up, like something different all the time. And I remember I was doing all these advanced nutrition courses and thinking I gotta know how to optimize cortisol and stress hormone, and I want to know what's going on with the menstrual cycle and so forth. And went into this big tangent. And I remember it was a couple of years later, I went to another nutrition talk, and they sort of said something, and I went, ah, that's what that all meant. You know, back there, I'd clicked, but it was also, I'd heard this from a coach, which was Andy McKenzie. It was a great quote, which is, you know, when coaches go to a seminar or, you know, a qualification, they're like, oh my God, that was the best thing ever. It wasn't the best thing ever. The course was pitched at a level you were able to interpret it and accept it. And I thought that was phenomenal, because I've done that going, oh my God, that's so much. But that proved to me that everything that I had learned before, I wasn't ready to take on board yet. And as I got more experience, then it started to click for me. And I think that happens a lot with clients. I know it happens with our guys, where you can get one thing, one duck in a row, and then this might be slightly off, and it's trying to get two ducks in a row. And if you put that Instagram filter, that, you know, perfectionism to everything needs to be going right for you, you'll never achieve success. And just as you mentioned, we do a 90-day you know, goal setting form. And I always tell people, the first 30 days are, I want you to write down the things that you can achieve on your worst day or in your worst week. So if you're like, I haven't trained before, okay, we're going to do a transformation, I'm going to train 5 days a week. Well, no, you're doing 2 or 3. I want you to come back to me after 30 days and I go, "Did you do 3 days a week? Yeah. Do you think you could train a little bit more or harder? Yeah. Did you nail 70% of your food? Yeah. Do you think you could eat a little bit better? Yeah. You've done 8 to 10,000 steps. You think you do more? Yeah. I want you going, I want to be holding you on a leash to go, now we can start putting our foot in the gas. You know what I mean?
I think that's
And
so
then we build
interesting.
those.
I think
Yeah.
it's really interesting as well. So what you'd said, obviously, starting low and building that up, and I suppose you take two different scenarios. You have person A who, again, they've got to train. They're told to train. You know what? You train 5 days a week, or you train 3 days a week, and they nail the 3 days, and they're buzzing about it. And then you get the same person, they're told to nail 5 days a week, and they nail 3 days, and they're fucking distraught about it. But the same two people have nailed the same. They've both nailed 3 days of training. But again, it's your perception on that. Like a client in their first week, if they've nailed 3 sessions, but in their head they were expected to nail 5, they'll think that was the worst thing ever. Whereas you start, as you said, like you start them small and build it up. That's absolutely key. And yeah, it is all perception of that. So yeah, that's so good, especially someone at the start of that journey. But I suppose it's applicable at all levels, which is the beauty of that. And as you said, when you did that course, they met you where you were at, and you'd acquired the knowledge and the skills prior to that. So yeah, I think
They yell that together. Yeah.
yeah, there's always we things, like even things that people mentioned to me that would come back to me even from ECA. One thing that Lenny always told me was he mentioned it to me. When I say he always told me, he probably told me once or twice, but it stuck with me. And he said, when they zig, you zag. And I try and implement that in everything that I
Yeah.
do. And it was something that just always, always has stuck with me. And I would say that with my own clients if we're talking about life and other things. So yeah, it's funny how those wee things just stick with you.
Yeah, I loved you had actually mentioned that there. Phil Brady had said something, and I came home and said this to my partner. We had him down speaking at the retreat, and he says, imagine you go home to your girlfriend, your wife, and you have a bunch of flowers, and you present those flowers to her, but she's been on TikTok, and on TikTok it says that if you get flowers from your partner, he's cheating on you,
Yeah, that's
right?
so wow.
Now, imagine the same scenario. You walk in with flowers, but she's watched a TikTok that says, a man who buys you flowers is the best person in the world. Same flowers,
Oh,
same circumstance, different perceptions. And I just really blew my mind because I was just like, there's times where I would come home and my partner's like, going off on one. And I'm like, what have I done? What's happened? What's going
should have had
on?
the flowers. Fuck.
That yeah, so I just remember saying this, and it was just like it's so true. And again, our perception of reality is not essentially other people's perception of reality. So yeah, but no, Daniel, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for all your time and like you know, for the ECA crew, the reason why I had Daniel on here is because he's had such an amazing journey. He's been from being a client to a coach. He is also one of the most structured and organized people that I know. And that's a good thing because the freedom that he now has to go and challenge himself is this something that we want you guys to experience, that it is not negative to have things set out plans so you're not putting out as much fires, that you can have the life that you want and you don't need to answer to anybody else or you don't need to feel the pressure. You've got an environment at ECA that wants to see you win and succeed. And all we need you to do is take that step. So again, Daniel, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And when you're ever in, call in and see us.
Big love. Thank you for having me on, and I appreciate any guys that have been listening. You're legends.
Thank
Big
you.
love.